is Lena Skinner, and I am the host for this room. So if you're staying here for more than one session, you'll probably be seeing me all day. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the WordCamp. If this is your first time, I'm sure you're going to have a great time. So today, this session at 10 o'clock, we're going to have wonderful Corey Morris. This is his second time speaking at the WordCamp. He's semi-professional at speaking at a WordCamp now, I'm going to say. All right. So Corey serves as the Vice President of Marketing for Voltage. It's a full-service digital marketing agency based here in Kansas City. He has spent 14 years working in strategic and leadership roles focused on growing both national and local client brands with award-winning ROI generating digital strategies. He was also recently awarded the 2019 Marketer of the Year by KCDMA. And also, in addition to his role at Voltage, he serves as the Board of Search Engine Marketing Professionals Association as the VP of Cities and previously led the local SEMPO Cities initiative in Kansas City upon founding the KC Search Marketing Conference. You're going to learn a lot from him today, and Corey, the stage is yours.
Thank you for everyone who is willing to come to an SEO talk. That's their second session of the day. I'm excited to see how many people are in here. I thought, well, we could have 10 people who wanted to take a nap, or maybe 100 people. So, no, I promise to try to not put you to sleep, and hopefully everybody's got enough coffee. I've shifted over to water, and hopefully I won't put myself to sleep here. So, just a quick background about us, and I'm going to dive right into it. I asked my team for a recent photo of us from an event, and this is what I got immediately. So that's probably about as much as you need to know about Voltage. This is our culture. It's a lot of fun. As you heard in the introduction, we're based here in Kansas City. We do web, and we're proud to focus mainly on WordPress, branding, and digital marketing. So we've got a couple of team members in here as well, and there'll be several of us through the event, especially today. And so catch any of us at any time. Also, so here's the team actually, some of the team actually at that event. So this is the picture I was looking for when I received that. But I'm going with this as a theme today. So this is the puppies presentation. I try to bring in a theme. I did a presentation, I've done it twice this year. That's all memes, 100% memes, every single slide. But that's not the one today. There's a lot more content and substance here. That was more of a 7-minute type of Ignite presentation. But you're going to see puppies because I want to make sure people are awake, or at least giving me some feedback as we go. As you heard, I'm involved in a lot of different things because I love engaging in our marketing community and the search community overall. I'm a contributor to Search Engine Journal, and anything else relevant. There's nothing else really relevant here to hear about. But the reason I mention that is that as today we'll go through this, I've got 23 points. And there's bullets. I'm breaking all the rules that I typically don't break because I want to give you my talking points here, especially if you download this later and take it and run with it. So I'm breaking rules and presentations with a lot of bullet points, 23 different slides with bullet points, more than that, but 23 tips for your checklist. Don't feel the need to write everything down. You can take some pictures and tweet stuff. I'll accept that and love that, and engage with us on social. But you don't need to feel the need to do that because you'll be able to download this later. This is being recorded, and also I've got a Search Engine Journal article that covers this too as a really good recap. So as we jump into it, here's the link to the article on this topic. Is that middle one? I'll have this slide again at the end too. And if you're interested and not put asleep by what I talk about today, I have additional articles at that third link on SEJ. If this is overwhelming to you, or if you're really intrigued by this and want to go look at the entire guide to SEO, I didn't write it, but there's a great one. One of the best ones is that first link, the SEO Basics, the SEO 101 guide that's available to download on Search Engine Journal. So those are 3 different links to different resources.
Trying not to promote myself here, but just to try to be helpful in sharing those with you.
And with that being said, I want to jump straight in. So here we go. Buckle up. All right, so the SEO process. I'm going to give you a checklist today, but I want to share, so there's some context here, so it doesn't look like I'm just giving you 23 random things that you figure out where they go, or what they matter in. So the way we do SEO, the way I've been doing it for a long time, is working through a discovery process, understanding client goals, getting in deep with their subject matter, and this applies if you're in-house too, if you're starting up a new SEO initiative, or if you're working as a consultant or as an individual on your startup or your brand or whatever it might be. Start with understanding what the goals are. What is our baseline traffic? What do we want to do? What do we think organic search can do for us, and work through a discovery process of some sort. Then we get into the three really layers of SEO, or the pillars of it, which are the technical factors, things that can hold you back if you don't address them, but they're not in and of themselves necessarily ranking factors. Just the things you need to get right and get out of the way, so then you can address the ranking factors. And then the two categories of ranking factors would be on-page as well as external, or what some people call off-page factors. And so we're going to work through the technical on-page and external, but I want to give you just that quick, simple background of what it looks like in a process if you were to phase your way through this. So modern SEO is context-driven and not keyword-driven necessarily. Keywords still matter, but context supersedes all of that. So building context is important. So if I have one page on my site on a really important subject, it may rank well, it may not, depending on competition and whether Google thinks holistically, I am all about that. I mean, if that's the most important product I want to sell, or the most important topic I want to be known for, I need to have a lot more context built around that topic. As I mentioned, with context, there's no one magic bullet. There's no one element of SEO that matters. If someone says, well, you just need to go through and update your title tags or your meta description tags, or you need to work keywords into your body copy, no one element typically works anymore. So that used to be the old way. Let's just go through and update our title tags and see what happens, and Google's going to like it. Maybe if you're the only one using that word, or you made up a word, so that word only appears on your site, you could get ranked for it if Google can see your content. But for something that probably matters in moving your bottom line for your business, that's probably not going to make that big of a difference. Also, think mobile first. So Google moved to a mobile first indexing model. So if your site's not responsive or mobile friendly, that's going to be a challenge for you in terms of rankings, because Google has worked on consolidating its rankings into really one view instead of looking at mobile and desktop separately, and so it leads with mobile now. And you have to remember who Google and Bing. I'll talk a lot about Google today because it gets the biggest share of all global searches. But you have to remember Google, Bing, any search engine, who their ultimate customers are. They're not us, the web publisher, the website owner, the search engine optimization specialist. They are the searcher, and they're always going to do what they think is best for the searcher, which will drive ad revenue for the search engines, as well as answer the question that the searcher is asking. So, with that being said, it's also not a set it and forget it. So we'll get the question of, well, can we do a one-time round of optimization? You can, and that's a good starting point, but you need the expectation of you're going to have to come back and do some rinse and repeat activities over time and work on this as a living, breathing thing. Google's changing the algorithm constantly and tweaking it, rolling out new updates, and it's actually in machine learning now, so it's not even engineer-driven, it's AI-driven, and competitors are making changes as well. So when they're putting out a new page on their website or changing something or doing something that has a triggering event, the rankings can get shifted as well. All right, so I mentioned there's puppies everywhere. As I hit sections, you're going to see puppies, and that's the appropriate response. Aww. So here's the goldens. As I end each section, I'm going to have puppies, and I've sprinkled some elsewhere too, so you don't have 8 slides, 10 slides in a row with text. So here's the technical SEO section. Reporting platforms. That's number one on your checklist. Make sure you have your reporting platforms set up. The first 3 here are all free.
Google Analytics is free. Get it set up on your site as soon as possible if you don't have it set up. If it's set up, you'll make sure all the features are turned on. There are some things that you just have to click some extra permission boxes to get turned on to get
interest data and some of the enhanced demographics that they will provide. Google Search Console, you want to set it up and integrate it because it collects data in a more anonymous way. So Google took keyword data out of analytics and put it into Search Console a few years ago. Search Console used to be Google Webmaster Tools, by the way. They rebranded it. And big Webmaster Tools, why not turn on another portal
that will give you information about your site. In addition to some of the data that they will give you, they'll give you anything that they see that looks like duplicate content, and some of the other things I'm going to talk about today that can be issues for you with HTML, your tags, and other things. So it's a great diagnostic tool as well. There's some usability and monitoring types of tools you can use as well. Those are third party, and if you're making a lot of updates on your site, or you think somebody might break something, or you might break something as you're testing, if you're testing in production, or if you're using the WordPress and rolling something out and getting published and not coming back to it or looking at what it really looks like, there's some tools that will help address that as well. And I can tell you a little bit more about those later, but one of my favorites is actually a tool, software platform based here in Kansas City called Lucky Orange, if you haven't heard of it. All right, so I'm going to go faster now. XML Sitemap. We're into the checklist. So the XML Sitemap is something you should have. It's an indexing thing. It's a page that no user ever wants to or should go to. But it sits in many cases, at sitemap.xml. If you use Yoast or any other plugins within WordPress, it will probably redirect from there to another URL with an index page of multiple XML sitemaps. This is essentially an indexing tool for the search engine. So this tool, again, it's automatically built in many cases if you're using Yoast, which I'll talk about a little bit more in my plugin slide. But if you're using it, it will build out this dynamically. So if you delete pages from your site, move pages, it'll update the URLs, and it's, in essence, an index page for the search engines when they come to your site to know what content is on your site and not miss anything. And you want the search engines to see the content you want them to, so you can get credit for it. And when you have it in place, you can go submit it to Google Search Console as well. Robots.txt file is similar, except this one is where you get indexing instructions. If you have areas of your site you don't want indexed, you can exclude them here. So this is a file that you can update typically through Yoast. If you don't have Yoast, you can do it through your hosting provider, or you can generate a static file and upload it to the root of the site as well. It's okay. It's not as dynamic if you want to make some indexing changes. But this is where you can allow the search engines to see everything on your site or exclude certain sections, maybe like your cart or checkout page or your WP login page. All right, so domains. Know all the domains that you own. You may have one primary domain. You may have bought 100 other domains over the years, and you may have them parked. You may have them redirecting to your site. Just make sure you do a quick check that anything that's redirecting your site is doing so through a 301 redirect, and that when you go to it, it doesn't stay at that domain name, essentially mirroring your site content. That's the worst thing that could happen here, as you don't want to present two or more duplicate-looking exact matches of your website to the world, and especially to Google. And make sure it's not doing a 302 redirect. Sometimes you're doing something at the in HD access. It can default to a 302 and not a 301. Google over time will translate 302s into 301, but 302 means the page temporarily moved, not page permanently moved, and it can send some mixed signals to the search engines. Site architecture. This is the fun one because WordPress does this really well by default. It's going to build your site architecture based on your directory structure, your literal directory structure. So you want to group around topics, as I mentioned earlier, to build context. And so the example I've got here is building out, if I was using WooCommerce, and in this case, this isn't exactly how WooCommerce would do it, because if I have products in multiple categories, it gets really hairy. But if this was a static site, which is pretend it is, even though I have a product-based e-commerce looking trail here, I want to go deeper and deeper and deeper into subject matter specific. It sounds logical. It's logical. It's how we want to build content in our sites. But sometimes we get 15 different layers of things needing to be over here, and or we use tools or plugins or things that will put a nasty like ID number on the end of or into the domain name or into the URL instead of a keyword rich or keyword friendly page name. So just think about it. Don't be afraid to have a really deep site, but that's okay for your user experience where you expect them to drill down and go deep, because that gives you more opportunities for rankings and entry points on deeper pages on the site versus having everything try to be in the top level. All right, this is your break mid on page section. All right, so site speed. In addition to being focused on mobile, site speed is important as well. So there are a lot of different things that will slow down page load times, and so you want to make sure they're fast and they score well. So where you stand right now, I suggest if you're a developer, if you're a coder, or if you're the primary person in charge of your WordPress site, to go use Google's Lighthouse tool within the Chrome developer tools. You can open it right in your browser, and you can go have it score and tell you what your score is, and tell you, give you suggestions on what to improve, things to improve. There are a lot of third-party tools out there that will do something similar. There's a standalone URL that you can go to test your page speed. You can just Google it. It's Google's tool. There'll be a lot of different suggestions like minifying JavaScript, image compression, and a lot of other things that are it's almost like choose your own adventure. What do I want to do here? You don't want to compress your images too much, make it look like crap. But so that may be one part of it. Bring image sizes down just a little bit, or resolutions down just a little bit. Remove unnecessary JavaScript and things that are in there, or if you've got your Google Analytics and Google Search Console and all these things as scripts, tracking scripts in your code, maybe move them into Google Tag Manager so you only have one instance. There's a lot of different ways to go with it, and these tools give you some great suggestions and great starting points for that. Also, there are a lot of different stats floating around. Some people still say 3 seconds, some people say 2 seconds, some people say 1.5 seconds for page load. It's all really relative to what the user experience will be and how long is it going to take for somebody to decide they're going to bounce back to Google, where that would really hurt you, and what do your peers look like. And you can get some benchmarking data in Google Analytics on that as well. So mobile friendliness, I already mentioned it, so I'm going to move right past this. But again, you can use Lighthouse for that, or a standalone tool to test and see, and it'll tell you what elements are too close together, or buttons and things like that, if you're failing the test. Also, one thing about it is with Google Search Console set up, if you have email alerts on, it will ping you if something changes and you're no longer mobile friendly. So that's something to set up too, so you get that information coming to you instead of having to go find it. All right, so 404s, 301s, and Canonicals. I talked about 301 redirects when I talked about domain names. But you want to make sure if you've ever got 404s, they're not going to kill your rankings if they're intentional. If you no longer carry that product and it's never coming back, if that content needs to be gone and out of Google, 404, let that page 404. But in many cases, you may have a product that you replace with a new product, or you may have a newer version of an article, or you're doing a re-architecture of your site information. Maybe it makes sense to redirect from old content that's going away to the most relevant new piece of content, and so that allows you to preserve any search equity that you had versus having to build it all back up with a new piece of information on the new page. So think about how you're going to do that. If you also, Canonicals, I'm not going into that. I would be happy to in a Q&A or an aside conversation, because that's a different topic, but canonical tags are something you can use, and I encourage you to research if you're not familiar with them. If you intentionally have a lot of pages that have mostly the same content on them, because Google struggles with Googling content doesn't like when you have 2 pages that have more than really 20% of matching text, because then it has to decide which one to rank. It's not necessarily going to be a penalty, but you may choose your primary page. Maybe the red Ford Mustang page is the most important to you, but it's ranking the taupe Ford Mustang page. Well, maybe there's a lot less clicks to that page, a lot less popularity to it, and if it's only going to pick one, you want it to pick the one that you specify, not the one that Google picks for whatever reason. If nothing else, you don't use redirects any other time, use them when you're launching a new site or migrating to a new site. if you do nothing else in a relaunch, I have an entire presentation on relaunch. Like, if you don't listen to any of the other 44 minutes of what I have to say, listen to the 1 minute about setting redirects. And what's great about it is if you map them out in advance, even if you're moving from a non-WordPress site to a WordPress site, you don't have to do anything on the old server and the old hosting. You have them all mapped out and know what the old URLs are, no matter how nasty they look and how dynamic and how many parameters and things are in them. Once you get it into WordPress, and you can do this on your staging environment and test before you launch, you can use the redirection plugin or a host of others to handle the redirects within WordPress without having to go to the server level.
SSL, so this is fun too if you don't have it set up right, how it can trip up the search engine. So SSL
Is a minor ranking variable, so if you can get it, you put your entire site under
SSL, and when you do so, make sure all the variations do a 301 redirect globally to the primary one. So if your primary one is https:// www.domain.com, make sure the other three variations without the S and without the www, or with it all redirect into whatever your primary one is. It doesn't matter which one your primary one is, of the with or without www. Under the S, so make sure the others redirect into it.
plugins. These are our team's kind of go-to for SEO, so Ghost does most of the heavy lifting for what we need to do. It allows you to update your tags, allows you to manage your XML sitemap content. We use one that's literally called Redirection, but it's by John Godley, if you didn't catch that from a previous slide. We, in probably the past 6 months or so, have been using maybe 6 months, maybe less, WP Rocket. It's really good at helping speed up some of those slow elements with or lazy loading images and things like that will help with page speed load times. AMP, literally called AMP, is the one that we use for AMP. If you want to use that, and Magify or Imagify, I don't know how to say it, but it's also helpful for images as well and optimizing images, especially if you're trying to find that balance and you don't want to go touch it and re-upload every single image on your site. All right, so one other thing on page, you may have baggage from an old site. You may have duplicate content issues everywhere. If you started thinking about that when I just mentioned that a minute ago, or just bad SEO that somebody did in the past. So understanding your baggage and pre-existing issues is critical too, because you may have to undo some stuff before any of this other stuff that we talked about takes effect in the technical area. All right, so we should have more copies. Losing some people. All right. I'm gonna up my energy here. Everybody, maybe I should walk around a little bit more. So, all right. So on page, keywords and topics. Do your research. Know what keywords people are searching for. There are a lot of different tools. Whether you want to use paid tools like MozPro or SEMrush, other tools like that that will allow you to do research. A basic tool, a free tool, if you're running Google Ads campaigns. Is their keyword planner. You can go in there. It's made for paid search research, so use it carefully because those metrics aren't totally translated to organic search. They're inflated based on match types. They're not literal. But knowing how many people are searching per month on specific terms is powerful information. It helps you build what your story is and what context, and know, I've got this widget named a totally made up brand name. Well, how do I make that tie that to a more generic name of what people are really searching for when they're looking for that widget? They think it's a wrench, but I've named it Corey's Super Tool, and whatever name that is. And so it needs to be translated to how people are searching, and you can build out based on the popularity of certain terms, some of your context and your information architecture that I talked about earlier. So if you're still looking at keywords. I said keywords don't matter. Individual keywords don't matter as much, but keywords still make the topics. So don't mean to contradict myself there. So keywords matter, but you want to group them into topics because you'll have plurals, you'll have singular versions, you'll have 5 ways to say the same thing, and you're going to want to naturally use those like you would in a conversation. So if I'm talking about a wrench, it's also a tool. It's also, it might be sealed if I'm describing it. So all those words work in context. And somebody may search for tools, they mean wrench. Somebody may say wrench, they may say socket wrench, they may mean monkey wrench, whatever it is. And so building that context will be important as you map topics to the sections of your site. So content, again, I mentioned speaking naturally, writing naturally.
You make sure that you're building context and you're not focusing on some outdated SEO things. So if you ever see people talking about
Keyword density, keyword frequency, or latent semantic indexing, LSI, go to a different website. Stop listening. Because those are really old school things that don't really matter anymore. They're overshadowed heavily by context and engagement and authority status. So working in keywords in the page copy helps when done naturally, but this needs to read naturally to the user and foster engagement. So if you lose engagement because you read the copy and it's got the word red Ford Mustang in it 37 times, we've all seen that, right? We've been to a web page and we're like, why does this read like this? This is terrible. Why would anyone write this? This is not written for me. That's a problem. So again, less is more if that's what is best for your user and reader. All right, so URLs. I talked about URLs and
Structure.
What's awesome is we have the ability to put keywords in. If we don't like the URL,
It automatically built. We can go click right up there, and for that page, update the page.
the keywords in the page part of the URL. Again, if you're using some plugins and things that will change your URLs, see if you can go back to the more native setup where you can get those keywords into the URL and go down that string. So in this case, product/inside jokes /Mason Ramsey /t-shirt. Bijan, are you wearing your Mason Ramsey t-shirt today?
Nope, not today.
All right, sorry.
You can see what that product looked like if he was wearing it today.
Title tags. Title is what populates the blue link in the search results. That's why this is important to Google. The user doesn't really see it aside from when they're clicking on it here. They'll see it maybe in their browser window, their browser tab, if they don't have 50 tabs open where they can only see one letter of each tab. You write it to introduce, you write it as
That's literally a title. You have a certain character count, 60, roughly 60 to 70 characters. Keep it that right as a title. It doesn't need punctuation.
figure out the most important keyword or topic of the page and introduce it in that. Don't overdo it. Don't say cars.
Same car dealership, cars KC. Don't overdo it because that can get you in trouble too if you're repeating. Meta description tags.
These are written in sentence formats. So these are, you have more characters here, 170, 180 characters, depending on where Google decides to truncate it. And these are written with punctuation in sentence formats. Work in some of those same keywords if possible, or at least
You get to further introduce the topic. This is the 2-line or 3-line or 5-line blurb as Google experiments with their layout.
it goes directly below the blue link and the green URL. So this is also something that can influence click-through rate. If it's not very descriptive, or if it's the same by default for every page on your site because you haven't put something in there, or if it's blank, Google would decide to override it with whatever they pick out. I've seen Google choose to use links from your text from links in your footer as the meta description. Nobody is going to want to click through on that if they see contact, bullet point, about, bullet point. It looks sloppy. All right, headings. Think of your web pages as a term paper. So headings, there's a lot of debate on whether they have any ranking factor or value to them at all. And so I'll admit that up front. These may not have any ranking value, but they're available to us. They help build context in how we organize our content, so we still use them properly. So 1H1 on a page, have it be the first H tag, especially if you love to use them for CSS more than you do for how you structure your content. Think about that. If your H1 is how you wrap it around your logo and logo link, think about changing that up and implementing that differently. And introduce the tags in order, so don't have an H1 and then just randomly an H5 somewhere. Bring these in as your subheadings and headings, and think of them as content use and not as much CSS. Obviously, you have to stop them too, though. All right, body copy. Already talked about this. Don't stuff keywords, let it read naturally. And long form works really well in some industries, but even short form works well in other industries and other dynamic content that you can generate. So it's really based on your industry or the subject matter, and I would look closely at your competitors who are ranking really well to decide if you need to go into it with 1,500 word articles or if you can get away with 200 or 300 or 500 word pages. Image alt attributes. Make sure you pre-populate these. When you're uploading an image, you have that box right there where you can plug something in, do it, because your site will not pass some web accessibility standards without them, and Google uses them as another cue or context. So you don't fake it. If it's a line separator, that's the image. Right line separator. Don't call it puppies if I'm trying to rank for puppies when it's a line separator. Structured data,
Learn about it at schema.org. I'm not going to go into this. Is another one I can talk to you on the side about. But these are libraries and ways that you can add additional markup and text or code to your sites to give context for the search engines. This is how they bring in a lot of new answer boxes and things that you see into the search results, where you can take up that first huge chunk of real estate if you're the one answering the question because you helped mark up your code and give context to what it's about. But there are a lot of different tools that will do this. In fact, we're looking for a new one, so if anybody's got a perfect structured data plugin, talk to me later. I want to borrow it. But this is a context tool. Right now we do a lot of this custom coded or with less than ideal plugins. So it's not really that perfect one out there yet. But you can learn about it at schema.org. It's a consortium between the big search engines. They all agree to play nice with it and to look at it. We're getting close to the end here. Here's the bonus category. There's the last 3 parts of the checklist here. You've done all the technical stuff. You've done the on-page stuff. You feel like you're done. You're not quite done. SEO goes beyond the site. So this is the external stuff or the off-page optimization. So this is where we built all the context, we built all the relevancy of our content. We are the experts. We're the best content, we're the best site, cleanest, fastest loading site out there. But nobody has validated us from the outside. So this is where you want one-way inbound links to you from authoritative peers in your industry, or publications or things that would look like authoritative. Tory's blog linking to your site is not going to have the impact of like New York Times linking to your site referencing you, or influential or membership-based trade organizations that you belong to, or whatever it might be. So getting those links in is extra validation of how big of an authority you are to go with your self-stated context of, I'm really relevant, I'm all about this. There are a lot of natural relationships where people should be, or organizations should already be linked to make sure you're getting credit for what you have. Don't buy links, don't buy ads that link. If you have ads, they should be no followed and following those processes as well. Local listings and directories, your local listings and your Google My Business. You see those map listings. If Google thinks you have a local intent with your search, they're going to pop that map box in there. It's above the organic search results. This is a different ecosystem and a different algorithm, but it does some of the citations and links you have from those local directories and local listings. It gives more context of, oh, I'm a bakery in downtown Kansas City. And giving those cues to Google are helpful as well. And then lastly, social media. So this is hotly debated as well, but it's still, there's enough correlation data showing that sites with more social media engagement, or brands with more social media engagement, have better rankings. Maybe that's because we care more overall, we're trying harder, and we have better content, and it resonates everywhere, maybe. But at the same time, while Google says it's not a ranking variable, they've gone back and forth. They've said it is, and they've said it isn't. The correlation data is strong enough to say, I should at least make sure everything is linked up. So I link to my socials from my website, they link to the website, and if I can get engagement between the two, I absolutely want to do it. All right, so as we wrap up here, I don't see anybody who looks like this. Everybody's awake, and I appreciate, again, your time and attention on this topic today. So the key takeaways, get your technical house in order. Don't start optimizing and writing tons of content until you know that it can be seen by Google, and that your pages don't take 13 seconds to load, and that it's a worthwhile effort. Know what your goals are, your keyword targets. What do you want to do? What is your baseline now? What is your average ranking across all keywords? What keywords and topics do you want to be known for that you're not? Set some goals, and so you can measure that and know what the impact of your work is. Work through as many items as you can, knowing that not one item is going to make that difference for you. They all work kind of in concert, so work through as many of these things on the checklist as you can. But no, it might take a little while. And again, context matters, and that's what we really want to focus on overall, and keep that in view as you get into some of the details. All right? That's the special one. All right, so here's this slide again.
if you didn't capture it earlier, or if you were going to wait to judge how much value you got out of this before deciding to go read anything more. And how much time do I have? 15 minutes. I got through 23 things within 2 minutes to spare.
So we'll have a microphone going around. If you can, please wait for it to get to you, so we have everything recorded.
Okay? Not having to answer almost anything.
In terms of like content that loads through Ajax, like, do you think like, how easy is it for Google to access those links? And is the sitemap enough to like compensate for that if it can't find them?
Google has said for 10 years that they can index, or they're working on being able to index JavaScript and Ajax. So the question was, if you have your links wrapped up in Ajax, can Google see them? Is that, yeah, so you see a lot of different tests and varying levels of Google's ability to do that or not. We still see stuff that's missed where Google will go right over it. So they've been saying that forever, that they can see it, but there are some prime examples of things that are cleanly written where they can't see it. So then is having it in the Google Sitemap enough to compensate for that? Or the XML Sitemap? Absolutely. And that's something you'll want to monitor to see if Google is indexing those pages and to go and to make sure they're getting into Google's cache. So understanding if Google is indexing those pages, that's fine. If they're not finding them through links to those pages, if they're finding them somehow else, if it's the XML Sitemap, then I think you're okay. You don't have to go recode everything.
There's a question down here. Could you pass the microphone, please?
Thank you. Redirects. So I have a current project where the recipe plugin I'm using, they're releasing an update and it'll require redirect. But we also have a rebrand coming out in 6 months, so I'm concerned about redirect chains.
Redirect chains are okay. They're better than having broken redirects go to the old place. Google will follow. There have been studies where people have put out 15 redirects, and Google will follow all the way. Google will follow all the way through. Note that with each op, so a fraction of the authority passed through is deprecated, but Google will follow them just fine. And it's better to lose a little bit of that link juice or the authority status that's transferred than to not get Google to that ultimate destination.
My developer is going to be thankful for that answer.
You talked a little bit about the SSL certificate, and I've noticed that some web designers will put the SSL certificate in. They don't lock the padlock. And I don't understand why they don't lock it, and that it's obviously, or in my opinion, it's going to affect their SEO. Am I right or wrong?
I don't know why they wouldn't lock it either. I had fully certified a certificate, so I don't even deal with that very much anymore, honestly, because our host is Flywheel, which is now just got acquired by WP Engine, but they offer free SSLs and they apply them for us, and they auto-renew it every 3 months, so we don't even touch it anymore. So, I mean, if there's any security warning whatsoever, Google's going to have a problem with it and probably not count it at all. And that's my opinion.
I agree.
It's like legal advice versus an official legal opinion. That's advice, not the opinion, the official opinion. But it's an on or off type of scenario to them, and it's not even necessarily a ranking factor. It's a tiebreaker. So all things are equal. We're sitting here at the spot looking for position 1. I'm probably going to lose it if they have it.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Oh, I was just going to say, you can go to winopadlock.com if you want to see like why your SSL certificate is
WinoPadlock.com.
Oh, yeah. But I don't
That's
know.
probably where it
Understand why
gets.
they don't lock it. You talked about blogs, and I've heard a lot about blogs should be long, they should be 2,000 words. they should have at least 5 images. Do you have I noticed that you kind of had a little different opinion about that, and I'm curious to if you could expand on that.
Yes, so writing for search engine journals as a monthly contributor, I have a requirement of having at least 1,200 words because they know statistically in that subject matter, they're competing against Search Engine Land and some of the other publications that's really the minimum to come to play. But they also don't want it to be over 1,800 words because that's where we have is, and that's where rankings start to drop off.
So for them, there's a happy medium. Every industry is a little bit different. So you can get away with a lot less in a lot of industries. So looking at user engagement stats, if you have any of those usability tools like Lucky Orange, you can see scroll depth on pages too. Will tell you where people, how long they spend on the page. If they're not engaging with it, at the end of the day, that's where you should start, but also look at other competitors. So you can find some patterns without even any software tools by going and looking at, all right, what are the top 3 or 5 rankings for, or results for this keyword, for this topic that really matters to me? What is Google rewarding for this subject matter? And it can even be different, if I'm talking about cars, it's going to be short if I'm talking about buying cars, getting into specs on a car. It's going to be long if it's a comparative or a review, and Google's probably going to weight it in those different ways based on what do they think the user's looking for, what is the trend that they're seeing. So it's absolutely a relative thing. There's no magic number of it's got to be at least 1,000 words and the keyword's going to be in 17 times, which I'm happy about. I used to follow all of those rules back in the day, and I'm happy that we have freedom to write the right way for our users now, assuming we're competitive and some competitive balance with it.
What was your minimum that you're doing?
Minimum? Minimum would be at least 250 words on a page. I wouldn't go less than that. Now, it's different if it's your homepage, and your homepage will probably rank for your branding anyway without 250 words. The reason for that is, and this has evolved too, but at most recent check, Google still indexes content in blocks of 200 words. So you want to fill up your first 200 word block, and what it does is it indexes the page by page. It takes all the words it sees. It takes out all the stop words like of, it, he, she, but, what, things that aren't. It takes out spaces. It crams everything together, and then it parses that. So 250 allows you to have some wiggle room for when stop words are removed, so it still ends up being 200 words. So the minimum would be 200, but again, I count stop words. It also is going to count your navigation things too, anything that's in the HTML, the body of your HTML. So there's also, it's gotten so much better. People obsess about latent semantic indexing LSI because things can be misinterpreted, words can be made into multiple things when spaces were taken out, but I won't give you examples.
Yeah, then foolproof you.
Yeah, so at least that much for it to be significant. But there are exceptions to that. We see it all the time where you've got 50 words or less on your homepage, you're ranking for some pretty good things based on other ranking factors that in concert can outweigh that. So it's not absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
You have a question right here.
This might be a little off topic, but say you've got really awesome SEO, but you've got terrible page load. Is one canceling out the other?
I would not say it's gonna, if all other factors are awesome and people still come to the site and engage and stay and don't bounce back to Google at a ridiculous rate, I think you're okay and it can outweigh that. But I would put a plan in place to see how much you can improve it and to see what would happen. In fact, there's actually a calculator that will tell you, especially if you're an e-commerce site, how much money you're losing for every second or every 1/10 of a second that your page load takes based on their estimates, based on everything Google knows in search volume, of how much people bounce back to the search results page. So it's kind of a tie-breaking factor in some cases as well. It's more important than it was when it first came out. It was like SSL, it was more of a tiebreaker, but it's increasing in importance, so I would increase focus on it going forward. Because even if you see steady rankings and steady traffic from them, over time, it's kind of a risk factor that might start creeping up on you.
Makes sense. Thanks.
I'll just go around.
Hi, you mentioned earlier about canonical, and when you would
Yes.
explain that a little bit further, that'd be great.
Yeah, so the canonical tag is like a meta tag. It's link rel equals canonical, and what you can do is if I've got 2 pages for a legit intentional reason that have significantly duplicate text, you can use that to specify on any and all pages which URL is the primary one that you want Google to pay attention to and index and aggregate all the authority status to. So again, if I have the page for every variation of color of Ford Mustang, I know that they're all duplicate except swap out the color in the body copy, so 99% duplicate, essentially. I can take, I can specify which page I want all that value. If somebody links to the brown Mustang, and make brown Mustang, but if they did, they link to the brown Mustang, they don't index, don't rank that page. Look at it, and all the links pointing to it for authority status, give credit over to the red one, because I know everyone wants the red one. So it's a simple line in the head section, or it looks very much like a meta tag, and you can write it in there, either manually in WordPress. Do we use any plugins? We don't really, guys, for canonical implementation.
Yoast covers most of it,
Yoast, all right.
but for outside of WordPress, we do other things.
Yeah, so I still use our little, it's not WYSIWYG, but our little text, our editor box that lets me put things in the head section, so I'm doing it the wrong way, because Yoast will do it for me. Yoast gives me the option. Any other questions?
Do you have any specific rules or like advice for Google Scholar rankings other than just follow the metadata?
So the question was, any advice for Google Scholar ranking? I'm not familiar with that. What is it? Is it based on like scholarly article?
Yeah, it's a separate search engine. There's a lot of rules for like, you have to have this, you have to have these in meta tags, and et cetera. And if you don't have it in PDF, it has to be in the code, et cetera.
So it sounds like a very much more strict version of what people use.
A little bit, and it still kind of uses the old school version of tab to have the meta stuff.
So if they tell you what you need, that's awesome, because they never tell you what you need. So if they tell you, that's a perfect cue that you absolutely should have it, because if you don't have it all, you're probably going to lose that battle against someone who does have everything filled in. I would follow, it sounds also like it's they're almost building their own structured data or schema.org type of model where you put it in for Google that way without using the extra code base or the extra libraries from schema. But it sounds like it works very similar to that. So I would try to hit every element that they mention, and then also think of everything else from traditional SEO that I went through today too. And if you can't hit every element, go supplement with other things like maybe structured data too on the page, and make sure it loads super fast and all that.
Walking over.
Oh, wow.
This is going to be our last question.
So with the H tags, the H1, I guess I didn't catch what you said about, what do you think of H2, H3, H4, or should I not use those?
Yeah, sorry I went fast there. So start with, have one H1, start with it, and then if you are using any others, then go to H2, H3. You can go back and forth. You can go H2, and then have an H3, and then go back to an H2, because again, you're using them for hierarchy of your subheadings and your content. But don't go have an H1 and then a random H5 without a 2, 3, and 4 before. Hopefully that doesn't give anybody heartburn to use them exclusively for CSS.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Corey. Please give him a round of applause.